I chose to speak about the Atlantic slave trade because I believe out of everything we've learned these past chapters, it's something everyone needs to be knowledgeable about. The Atlantic slave trade occurred for over 300 years, from 1492 to 1820. It involved European merchants, African traders, and American planters. It was a series of trading routes that went across the Atlantic Ocean that brought British manufactured goods to Africa and Britain American colonies, and then it brought slaves to the New World from Africa, and then it brought the colonial products from the colonies to Europe. People figured that risking human lives and using people for slavery was for the better because they were able to profit. Some people may ask how the African Americans were losing their lives. Well, part of the Atlantic slave trade was the Middle Passage. It was called this because it was the middle leg in the triangular trading. It was the most gruesome trip someone could take. African Americans were crammed below deck and could barely move whatsoever. They were chained from their necks to their legs, and they could not turn around or even look sideways. They were treated terribly and barely given any food or water. Because of these harsh conditions, diseases spread rapidly across the ship, and barely anyone was able to make the trip to the New World. Only 1 out of every 5 African American made the trip to the New World, and even if they did make it, when they got put onto their plantations, many died from harsh treatment. If you thought the Middle Passage was bad, it got even worse for the African Americans, because once people figured out that slaves helped produce their products / crops faster, for example, sugar, rice, coffee, tobacco, etc., the demand for those products increased a lot more. Therefore, the demand for slaves increased a lot more. Therefore, more and more African Americans were brought to the colonies to be slaves. Therefore, more lives were lost, and therefore more African American lives were treated unfairly. One artifact from the Atlantic slave trade are ballasts. The ballasts were there on the ships as weights. They were made from very heavy materials such as iron or lead, and they were placed at the bottom of the ships to stabilize them. You may think, didn't the hundreds of slaves at the bottom of the ship stabilize it? Well, crew members already knew that many would die of sicknesses and be thrown overboard, which causes the ship to lose weight. Therefore, they would bring along the ballast to take the place of that human's weight on the ship. Ballasts were found off the coast of Cape Town, South Africa in 1974 from the first historically documented ship carrying enslaved African Americans that wrecked. Later on, these tradings of slaves and slavery would be condemned by statesmen and known as a crime. However, it was far too late to recognize this as a crime because many African Americans had already lost their lives. Many had to go through an entire life and endure a lifetime of pain. And me personally, I cannot put myself anywhere in this history section because I could not endure the pain that the African Americans had to go through, nor could I be a part of the Atlantic slave trade and deal with the guilt of being part of such an horrific thing.